Hello and good morning. This is now take number 5 doing this video. My phone keeps ringing. So I have turned off my phone and we've closed our doors. There are no interruptions as we talk about the frequency function. So it seemed like it would be a good time as we're getting ready to start the second section of class talking about statistical analysis with surveys and survey design that we talk about the frequency function. I actually thought I had this video already made and apparently I don't. So I think that the frequency function will be very helpful for you as you go into your survey design and analysis. So what is frequency? Frequency is a descriptive statistic that basically is the equivalent of a count if. Okay. And count if is pretty easy, right? So basically it's counting based on a specific condition or criteria. So now what you're looking at are our survey responses. Okay. So we'll say that you created a survey instrument. Okay. And that survey instrument was given out to all the students that took M540 with Dr. Kling, or King is what that says. Okay. Now, the survey is a quantitative survey that uses a Likert scale. So what does that mean? Basically, it's a quantified number that gives us the ability to express how we feel. So for example, I ask a question, question 1, and it says, okay, I feel very strongly about this, or I feel very negatively about this, based on the way that it's coded, right? And you can word it positively or you can word it negatively, and these can reverse, but don't worry about that right now. Just worry about the math that we're about to do. Okay, so these are called survey observations. The survey itself is called an instrument, and this is based on a Likert scale, which is a quantitative method of expressing how we feel. Okay, so now you could figure out how many ones there are in this survey and how many twos there are and how many threes there are using the count if function. Count if. Now, I'm assuming, we talk about assumptions in statistics all the time. So I'm assuming here that you are already familiar with the count if function, which is why I'm not explaining how to do it. So count if is outside the scope of this video. If you don't remember how count if works, jump out of this video. You can jump into our playlist and you'll see all of the count if, sum if, and average if function videos available for you just for a little bit of review. For now, though, I'm going to do a count if, and it tells me there's 5 ones. Now, I created an absolute reference for my observations, which means I can fill this down, and there's my grand total. Okay, totally acceptable, absolutely a way to do it, but man, oh man, there's a faster way to do it, or we'll call it an alternative way to do this using the array function called frequency. Now, frequency is a term, first of all, so it's just a method of calculating specific descriptor of your data in statistics, but then also in Excel, it's just a feature, it's like a function that's available for you, and there's 2 different ways that you can do frequency in Excel. You can use the data analysis tool pack, or you can use the array function frequency. We're not talking about the analysis tool pack because not everyone has the same access to that stuff, depending on what version of Excel you're using. So what we're talking about is the frequency function, which everyone has. And at the end of this video, we'll talk about an update to dynamic arrays in Excel, which is really awesome because it actually can make using the frequency function even easier. Now, I will give you a note that that dynamic array feature is only included in Office 365 users that have the latest build as of January 2021. Okay. Although I think now that I say that, dynamic arrays probably were rolled out in summer of 2020. But just wanted to point it out there that not everyone will have it depending on what type of installation of Office that you have. But everyone will have frequency. Okay. So frequency is an array function, okay? So what that means is it's going to give you all of your answers back at once. So what you do differently here is instead of just clicking one cell that's going to have a value that you want and then trying to copy that down, we're going to click and we're going to select J6 through J10. Okay, so that's different. If it was a regular function, I'd just click here and then I'd use the fill handle like I did for count if. But I'm going to do this and then I'm going to select because that contains, that's the cell range that we want to get values back in. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type my frequency function. Frequency function itself is really easy. It's only got 2 arguments. The arguments for the frequency function are data array and bins array. The data array are all of your data observations without the headings, right? Excel usually doesn't like words. So no headings, B6 through F43. Notice that I did an absolute reference here. I did an absolute reference because I don't have to. It's going to make every answer for me. It's going to calculate every answer in the array. So there's no need to fill. You don't need to ever fill using the frequency function if you do this right. Say it again. You don't need to fill with the frequency function unless you've not set this up correctly. Okay? So you don't really need absolute values. So the next thing is the bin array. The bin array actually has to be created by you. Now, statistically, there's a way to calculate the range depending on if it's a range of values or an individual categorical value, right? So, for example, if this were ages, age ranges 25 to 50 or 50 to 70, you could do that with frequency, right? So you can do ranges. But in this particular case, they're just basic categories, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this case, we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like so. Now I'm going to close this off, but I'm not going to hit enter here. If I hit enter, that's just going to calculate a regular value. If you hit enter, it will just answer cell J6. That's not what we want because then you'll use the fill handle and fill, and you don't want to do that. What you're going to want to do, because this is an array formula, is you're going to hit the keyboard keys Control, Shift, and Enter. Whoops. Now this was formatted as percentages, so we'll just stop. There we go. And we take that back. So when we hit Control, Shift, Enter, it gives us the same count ifs, basically, that you got if you use the countif function. But notice that it did it all at once. Now, how do you know that you did this as an array formula? Well, if you look at the formula bar up here, notice you've got curly brackets. Boom, boom. Those curly brackets denote that you used an array calculation instead of a regular calculation. Now, when you do that, there's a couple caveats that happen. So watch this. Say I don't want that 58 anymore. For some reason, I wanted to delete it. You cannot do that. You cannot delete part of an array. If you created it together, then you have to delete them all together, and we'll do that. Okay, so you cannot delete part of an array. You can only delete it all. Now, there are 190 total observations here. So if you were to add all these up, there's 190 total answers to the surveys. So one other thing I wanted to show you, which is a useful metric to use, would be instead of calculating just straight count, you actually can add additional math to a frequency function to get percentages. So there's the same frequency function I just created before, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that by 190, and by doing that, what it's going to do when I hit Control Shift Enter is it's going to give me percentages, which tells me 2.63% of all of these are ones. 30.53% of all of these are twos, and so on and so forth. Okay, just super helpful. Straight count, percentages. So a couple notes about the frequency function before we conclude here, and I want to show you this new dynamic array feature. A couple of notes about it. First note is your highest high number needs to be represented. So if you're doing age ranges, for example, if you were doing surveys, so for example, if we're doing age ranges, let's go back here. So here is the same concept, but based on cars, right? And it's based on mileage. So the highest number that you see here is 100,000 miles. This car's got 190,000 miles. This car would not be counted unless we do something special here because the highest high number needs to be in the bin range, or there's another trick you can do. So we'll go this way. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Notice that I've got an extra cell here, and that cell that corresponds to it, the bin, is blank. Think of that like an overflow that gives you outliers. Okay. So the lowest low number will still go inside the low miles, but if there's something over 100,000, it wouldn't count it unless I go over and give it one extra blank array. So here I can go frequency, data array, bin array, parentheses, and then Control Shift Enter, and it's going to tell me that there's 22 cars that have over 100,000 miles. Okay, so don't let that fool you. If you're doing ranges, right? So these are ranges: 0 to 10,000, 10,000 to 50,000, 50,000 to 100,000. Those are ranges. So if you're doing ranges with frequency, your highest high number needs to be represented, or you need to have this outlier cell, which has no bin number that goes along with it. Okay, so I wanted to point that out to you. The other thing I wanted to show you, okay, was this new feature called dynamic arrays. And dynamic arrays are pretty cool. What dynamic arrays do for you is if there's a function that returns a range of values, it will spill those values over automatically. Okay. So if I go in and do my frequency again, normally, there you go. Normally, I have to use that array calculation, and I knew that you could get around that using dynamic arrays, but I wanted you to know how to do this the old-fashioned way, because what just happened, notice that it looks kind of weird, right? So it's got that shadowing that goes around it. That's called a spill. And what happened was when I calculated the frequency, it knew that it was an array and it could calculate multiples at once, right? So it automatically, dynamically created that array for you, and it even gave me that overflow, right? See the overflow here? It even gave me that. Okay, that new feature is part of the dynamic array features in the newest version of Office 365. Okay, so if you do have the newest version of Office 365, you no longer have to calculate an array hitting Control Shift Enter, because it will do that spill that you just saw and automatically create that entire list. And if I like it, I hit Enter and I keep it. Okay, so I want to stress to you why I showed you this last. Okay, dynamic arrays are brand new, and they're only included in Office 365 subscriptions. So as of right now, February 2021, if you don't have the newest version of Office 365 that's subscription based, you wouldn't necessarily have dynamic arrays. So the only way that you could make this work would be using the method that I just showed you. Now, in class, we just talked about dynamic arrays and the indirect function and the filter and the sort functions and a lot of those other different options. Those features are only available in the newest version. Indirect is available for all of them, but sort and filter and some of the other newer functions are only part of dynamic arrays in the newest version of Excel. Never fear, if you have even Excel 2010, frequency is there. 2007 frequency would be there. So this will be there for you the entire time, no matter what. That's it. So if you have questions, you guys know how to find me. Shoot me a note, shoot me a message. As all you young influencers out there say, like and subscribe for more awesome videos. We're going to talk about more dynamic arrays coming up soon. I will see you guys in class a little bit later today.